I almost thought about wearing mine, but I figured you'd have yours on. All right, there we go. It is kicking in live now and starting the webinar so that people can start joining, and top of the hour we'll hit the recording. And welcome everybody to the 2024 Chia Roadmap Update. This is a Q&A with the man himself, the legend, Gene Hoffman, and of course the man behind the scenes who has a lot to say but not enough time, Cameron. Thank you both for joining us today. I know we have a lot of great questions regarding the 2024 roadmap. If anybody participating would like to ask any questions throughout the event, feel free to use the Zoom Q&A. If you are joining in the YouTube live stream, please jump into our Discord channel or jump into that Zoom in order to ask in the Q&A or our Discord community feedback channel. We also have that information posted on our Discord server, so feel free to ping us there if any questions or issues do arise. That being said, we do have a blog out with links to the 2024 roadmap. You can find those in any of our social accounts, also on our Discord server. And today we're going to discuss different updates to the roadmap. We're going to dive into a few of the products that had been announced and also cover a few of the other products that are nearing or at completion. Cameron, if you want to go ahead and give us a start, I know one of our first questions is regarding the cloud wallet, and that's probably going to be one of the most important things to discuss here today and most cumbersome. So I'm sure we're going to come back to it a few times. But if you don't mind just identifying what the cloud wallet is, what we want to do with it, and how others can be involved.
All right. Yeah, that's a big topic and a great question. So I'll get it started, but I'm sure we're going to have to come back to it and add to it in lots of ways. So the cloud wallet is hopefully a self-explanatory descriptor. We're building a wallet that runs remotely in the cloud. We'll have a web-based interface, but we'll also have other interfaces because ultimately it exposes an API to the world, and we're building and distributing the first web wallet against it. But we'll have a desktop wallet and a mobile wallet that also works against it. Now, the thing about the cloud wallet, and we should answer this up front, is that it doesn't have any of your keys and it doesn't do any signing for you. So part of the architecture of the cloud wallet is that it is doing the sort of blockchain interaction for you. It's monitoring your coins. It's helping you construct transactions and manage their sort of life cycle there. But when it comes down to actually signing a transaction, there's a separate component in this system called a signer. And that's where your keys live. That's something that you own and control. And it's ultimately you that's signing a transaction. And so we're building this wallet out. It'll allow us to do a bunch of things that have been very challenging for us to do so far with our wallet architecture. I think we can run through a few of those. One of the major pains that we often feel is around syncing. And so when you have a wallet that's been offline for a while and then it comes online, you need to sync it. You need to figure out what your current latest coins are. And that's a process that can take a lot of time if you have a lot of transactions or you have a lot of coins. By building a cloud wallet, this is a wallet that's designed to be online all the time, to be constantly synchronizing with the blockchain, which means that when you open up your wallet, you'll be instantly synced. You'll have your entire transaction history, you'll have up-to-date balances, and you'll be ready to go. The other thing that also provides, though, is what we call watchtower features, which are things that will monitor the blockchain and then give you appropriate notifications when something happens. So if you want to know if some of your coins are moving, you can get a notification. But more importantly, as we get into Vault, which is one of our new features that's coming, Vault has a recovery feature where you can change your keys if you've lost them. You'll want to know if that is happening, for example. And so if there's something that's happening on chain that you need to know about, maybe an offer file has been accepted, a watchtower can send you notifications. So that's the other important part of the cloud wallet, which is it's always connected to the blockchain, and it can tell you when interesting things happen. And so that's a kind of a quick description of what the cloud wallet is all about, but I think we'll probably have a lot more questions about maybe some of the features about it, and why we're going this path. But yeah, I can keep going, or maybe you have more questions adding on to that.
Oh, that's absolutely perfect. I wanted to make sure we got the core of the information out there so that anybody watching can ask those additional, more ingrained questions. So feel free to use that Zoom Q&A or utilize our community feedback channel in Discord to ask your questions. Now, Gene, I'm hoping you can give us a little bit of a step back and give us a higher level view of the roadmap, of the strategy behind CNI, where we've come from and where we're going.
Well, first you have to build a blockchain, and so that was what we were doing, 3 years ago. Now it is really focused on how to build one market, and that is very much, offer files and trading robots and liquidity that's not locked, but actually is only used when traded. And when you really start to think about what that means for something more than end user use, immediately you hit well, almost every organization requires at least two people to sign off on something. And once you hit that, all of a sudden there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure that needs to be there to make that easy for mere mortals. And the people who are going to be using this at the end of the day are folks like controllers and accountants and customer service representatives or issuance desk folks. It's not the most sophisticated user on the planet. You want to make this really darn easy to use. And so this is very much focused at making the Web3 pieces in many ways disappear. Now, what's cool about it is it's kind of the ultimate SaaS application. You almost don't have to trust us at all. The only thing we could really do is like man in the middle a bad signature spin bundle. But by the way, you're going to be able to inspect that on your device when you're signing. And that's one of the key things that we're really focused on is, you want your primary signing devices to be able to display to you what the heck is going on for real. And the other thing that's, I think, really fascinating about all this is that we're going to have a tremendous spectrum of security levels. We think that the extreme security levels are almost unnecessary for most folks. We're going to use them, for example, for the strategic reserve. But I think one of the fun things and one of the challenging things is going to be to explain to people, hey, look, when you have a secure element that's got a backup key, you actually have, even though it's online, really a cold wallet. And so I think that's going to be, one of the more interesting things. Now, a word about kind of our vision for how this works. Ultimately, most of what's going to be in the cloud wallet will likely be available both in open source and in a desktop wallet. Not everything, though. I mean, there are going to be a lot of features that are very specific to extremely high-end users, things like chain split prediction, some of the advanced Watchtower stuff. But hopefully, long term, what we do is we're building kind of wallet features in one place and then taking a subset of that and rolling that out into what is the desktop wallet. Because not everyone can work with us. Unfortunately, as an American company, there are certain places where we just can't be involved. And we want to make sure that everybody has an option to not leak their metadata to us. That is one thing, the cost of convenience is that some of your privacy goes away. For our enterprise customers, this is not a problem. But for end users, it's a balance. And we want to make sure that you still have both options, both sets of tools. So, very much this is a premium product. We are going to make it available, to almost anyone, but it's not going to be very cheap. I mean, I just want to be upfront with everybody that we are saying, hey, if you want the cheap solution, you've got open source, you've got other wallet vendors. We don't want to crowd out many wallet vendors. But the things we're thinking about building with this are things like offer management market making robots. I've got carbon to sell and I want to make sure that these prices stay here and I don't have to watch it every minute. I want it just to go do what I need it to do. Those are kind of the advanced features that Cloud Wallet is really designed to underlie and support.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you very much. And excellent. Very excited to see Cloud Wallet. And Cameron, I know you wanted to touch a little bit more on the actual cost there as well.
Mhm.
And as Gene, you identified, we're going to have that robust enterprise layer with a bunch of additional features, and we might have a consumer version as well. And Cameron, if you don't mind going into those costs for private individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I want to give a little bit of background on this wallet in general, which is this was originally conceived as an enterprise offering. There were a number of things that we needed to be able to offer enterprises, and it required a new wallet architecture to be able to deliver that. And as we sort of pursued development of this, it became pretty clear to us that there's some really great features in here, and we should make them available to end users to be able to use. And so where we ended up is with what will ultimately be kind of a 3-tier pricing structure, where there will be a free version where anybody can go and use the web-based wallet in a limited capacity for free. But then there will be a individual paid level that you can upgrade into to get more features. and then there will be an enterprise contract sort of tier for the largest of enterprises that need enterprise specific features. Gene mentioned some of them, but then there will be additional features around having users and groups and roles and access and auditability and a bunch of stuff that end users don't really need or care about, but then is critical for enterprises to be able to adopt. So yes, I think the basic answer is there will be a free option that'll work for a lot of people. It'll be a great sort of entry into the Chia blockchain. Anybody will be able to very quickly be able to get a Chia wallet, especially using a web interface with pass keys. I think this will be a sort of very secure, easy to use on-ramp into Chia within a matter of minutes. But then if you want to be able to get additional security or additional features, then there'll be a paid monthly subscription, probably an annual pricing option available. Don't know what the exact dollar number will be. It's not going to be cheap, but it's also not going to be expensive. It'll be somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, and one thing that may not be obvious for folks who think about it from a kind of retail perspective, a lot of our enterprise customers kind of need that free wallet tier because they're going to be onboarding people who kind of don't know or don't care about blockchains, but want to buy their assets or want to hold their NFT or whatever. And so that's one of the other major use cases from our perspective about why there's a free tier.
Yeah, excellent addition there. Thank you both very much. And
Mhm.
yeah, very excited to see all of that happen. And as you mentioned, there's going to be some prerequisites to actually launching the full version of the cloud wallet, one of those being the open beta, which is on the roadmap for here in the near future. Do you mind kind of identifying where people should be looking for information about that beta?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, our normal communication channels, we're going to be loud about this. As soon as there is anything you can sign up for, we're going to want you to. So we're going to be loud about it. So our normal comms channels is what you should be monitoring. If you're here, then it sounds like you probably already do. But yeah, the rollout strategy is going to be a little bit of a controlled rollout strategy. And so this is a brand new product, brand new platform for us. So we will do a closed beta where it'll be mostly internal dog fooding and some external parties who we already work closely with. We'll do sort of a short round of internal beta testing just to make sure everything looks good to go, but then we'll do an open beta where anybody can sign up for, and then that's when you'll see communications go out for that.
Thank you.
I don't know if I
Thank you.
gave you the right answer, but that's what to expect.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Essentially, keep your eyes open on our communication platforms, and we'll let you know about that beta. And Gene, I know you already answered it inside of Discord there, but to answer it on Zoom here for everybody else as well, was the enterprise cloud wallet something that was specifically expressed as a need by an enterprise customer, or is this preemptive?
A
Essentially,
little bit
how
of
to
both.
leverage.
Yeah, so we've definitely had some experience with proofs of concepts and the actual deployments of real production things like the CAD Trust. And what we looked at is, okay, what were the pain points for those organizations getting live? And beyond that, it's also, as we really think through the feature set of what an offer created one market looks like, there's a lot of code and a lot of infrastructure that you have to just keep rewriting. And from our perspective, that is the kind of worst of all worlds. We want to make, want to write that once and let you then, specify what you want in your offer making robot, in your chain reorg detection. We're going to be the experts in figuring that stuff out and giving you then, API or web interface access to that directly. And I think, one of the things that really enabled all this is vaults. Custody done right really makes it much easier to make all these things work, to the point where, I don't want to say it too loudly, but ultimately, what we're building is also an IAM solution, even potentially back for your enterprise. Now, that's not something we're going to do immediately, but it is, ultimately what we're going at is you have an administrator who's got sub accounts, and those accounts are individual people, and some of those people have signing keys and some don't. And you're really going to be able to create a control structure that'll make an auditor very happy and have that be enforced by a blockchain that is not us and not you. And that really changes the game. It makes it much easier to use this stuff, and it makes it very hard to steal, and it makes it easy to recover from when you inevitably lose a hardware device or whatever. And just an interesting point about this, some people are like, hey, we haven't seen as many features recently. And a lot of that is because we have been spending so much time building all of the under pieces of, how do you do remote signing? How do you manage multiple hardware devices? And so I think what you're going to see in the second half of this year is going to be a heck of a lot of stuff very quickly, because we've done all of that investment over the last 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, we're
Most
moving from a mode of doing packaged software. Essentially, we do periodic builds and we publish them and people download them and run them on their own equipment, and moving to a sort of software as a service platform. Once we've got that foundation built, we're going to be able to ship updates very frequently. And so, yeah, definitely looking forward to hitting that mode.
Yeah, very exciting for sure. And I know, working with support and working with numerous users, the two main issues that we always come across are I can't sync or how can I better secure this? And we've identified solutions for both of those here today. We have, the cloud wallet for free syncing and quick syncing for users. And of course, the Vault solution as well is going to be a robust way to secure assets. And alluded to and identified within that conversation, you both kind of mentioned different signing options. And of course, we've discussed previously the iOS Signer app, but do you mind diving into why it's so important to have these various signing capabilities and options?
Yeah, I can take the first stab at that, and I'm sure Gene has plenty more to add. So historically, what we've had is all BLS keys, and there have been no hardware implementations of that, although there are now some emerging Ledger adding support for it. But that meant that we were in a world where your keys were always in software. They were living in memory, and they were being used to sign things, and it's not a great way to protect sensitive keys. And so what we wanted was more options. And so what we've added was, we added a couple of new opcodes into CLVM that allowed us to verify different types of SecP signatures. And this opened up a lot of new doors for us. It opened up an avenue towards what we call our iOS signer. So now we can create a SecP key inside of a secure enclave on an iOS device and use that to generate signatures to secure coins. But it also opened up passkeys, which is something that is becoming more and more common, supported in basically every browser, which would allow you to have sort of your own key pairs that are generated and managed by the browsers and secured, by the passkey implementation. It could be stored in iCloud. It could be on a YubiKey. But this will allow a user to be able to, within their browser, get a Chia wallet without having to install a browser extension, for example. So I think this is really going to bring down the barrier to entry for getting a Chia wallet. So that was some of our desires. I think Jane probably has more he wants to add.
Yeah, I mean, what's really powerful here is that you really have now a kind of gamut of different options that are highly secure. Passkeys can be a little limiting security-wise in the sense that you don't necessarily get to see what you're signing as well. But the flip side of that is that you now are responsible for how secure they are. If I generate a passkey that's completely tied to a secure element in a YubiKey, it's pretty darn secure. And then you get to maybe two passkeys, those kinds of things as ways to recover. But the thing that's really powerful here is clawbacks. And the issue is that by having, for the nerds out there, it's not a blockchain, it's a time chain. We know what time it is within plus or minus a little bit. And from that perspective, all of a sudden, you can make custody completely rational with a watchtower and a clawback. You lose your phone, you can use a YubiKey to replace your phone. And the YubiKey, that makes a lot of sense for YubiKey because you're really kind of only signing one type of transaction ever, and that's an account recovery. But if somebody steals that YubiKey and manages to sign an account recovery on your behalf, your phone will wake up and yell at you that someone's trying to steal your funds, and you have a couple hours to stop that. The next level of this is, and this is a level of security that I think is not really found anywhere else, and that is having both an online and an offline iOS signer. So you've got your regular phone that you're carrying around in your pocket all day, every day, and it has two keys. It has the key that's in the secure element that you're carrying around and, could be stolen from you by somebody with a gun. But then you've got another key that's actually the highest security key you can have, which is basically locked in a now offline iPhone or Android that is only going back and forth over QR codes. And so you get in a situation for extremely high value spends where you can use your online iPhone to confirm that this key can also claw this transaction back. And there's no way that somebody has put a spend bundle in front of you that you can't claw back. And then you don't sign with the secure element in the warm phone. It's only signable by the secure element in the cold phone. So now you're using your camera and QR codes. You're comparing, did what I want to sign match what the web is telling me? Did that match my online iPhone to my offline iPhone? And when you're done, you now transfer the signature back to the online phone. The phone pushes it back up to the blockchain, totally securely in a way that is nearly impossible to steal. And if something goes wrong, you just claw it back. This is a whole new level of security. Now, we're not going to have that in the very first immediate release, but know that we want to use that ourselves for moving the pre-farm from where it currently sits to this implementation because it's just so much easier to use minute to minute. Though I will say, for our warm wallet, for the 1/8, we may actually just go with a group of people in their warm iPhones. One of the things that's neat about the iOS signer and later Android, there's going to be some on app controls. So you can say things like, hey, don't spend anything if I'm not within this distance of, these couple places, my home, my office, my boat, whatever. Or, this shouldn't spend if it's outside of California. There's all sorts of little things like that that are going to be able to be, added in to what we're doing with iOS signer to really create a very fine-grained and very difficult to beat security system while still being completely easy to use for normal people. Your CSO is going to make these decisions, roll it out on your phone, and you're just going to get a button prompt that goes, hey, we need to issue more carbon. Okay, yep.
Excellent. Excellent. And we have a great question in Discord from Rue92 about the implementation itself and its effect on CNI. And the question is there any added security liability for CNI by releasing this cloud wallet rather than a different version of an open source wallet?
So yes and no. And what I mean by that is, as a software service provider, we aren't very worried about that additional liability because fundamentally we don't have any custody or control of your stuff. So, yes, someone could try to get in, try to, insert a signature that you don't want. That's about the most anybody can do. And we're going to be building tools where it makes it really easy for you to confirm, hey, is this what I expect to spend? Are these coins getting created that I expect? We really want to spend a lot of effort over time in making that signing UI be very easy to understand and very easy to confirm you're doing what you want to do. But also for regulatory and international reasons, most all of the features we're talking about are also going to be available in the desktop wallet. The cadence of desktop wallet will not be as fast, so a lot of features will lag. But the point is that if for some reason you're worried about CNI, there are options. You don't have to use CNI in any way. However, we think that the largest organizations with the most money at risk are going to want to make sure that they have a relationship with CNI and use this infrastructure.
Thank you very much. And absolutely, it'll be nice to have that trusted third party, but still have custody of one's own funds. And I think it's a great middle ground there that we've been able to identify. To everybody who's participating, feel free to use the Zoom Q&A to ask your questions or jump into the Discord server and ask in the community feedback channel. And Gene, one of the things that you mentioned previously is that this is a time chain. And I want to touch on one aspect that's on the roadmap that we did identify, we sent blogs out about, but we had an awesome distribution that helped with the security of the network this year. And do you mind touching on the Time Lord distribution?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we sent out 60 different packages of 1 to 3 Time Lords each. I picked, packed, and shipped every single one of them, which is kind of hilarious. But anyway, so no, we now have Time Lords all around the world, and in a positive surprise, we're actually seeing more diversity of Time Lord wins than we thought we would expect. Interestingly, the ASIC doesn't overclock very well and actually wants to be a little warm to go as fast as possible. These are not usually what you expect out of computer hardware, but what it means is it looks like these things are going to, live a relatively long life. Obviously, we are keeping some in cold storage effectively in case we see lifetime issues because we don't know what the kind of total lifetime is. But the fact that we really have Time Lords everywhere on the planet really goes to hardening things like chain splits due to like the Great Firewall of China once in a while hiccuping. We expect to not see that have the same sort of impact it could if there are a limited number of Time Lords out there. So, it's a really fun thing. We're excited about that. We had a little contest here, and we'll be announcing some winners to get a couple more. And, we've got a few more, so we'll be doing things here and there. But, also one important thing, because I see this fallacy flow around is, well, if these all go down at once, the blockchain stops. And it's like, no, any computer can prove time. It's not maybe very, very fast. So yes, there's a possibility that we could go like 4 times slower for a couple days, but the blockchain moves forward with anybody proving time.
I think that's a great point to make there. And as you mentioned, any computer can really run a Time Lord outside of one of these ASICs, which is just truly powerful. And of course, how the chain had operated before the ASICs were created. Now, something else that's on the roadmap is we do identify a few community projects, and there's some interaction with Chia and there's some integration as well. The one that was launched at the beginning of this year is Warp Green, and one that we're looking at a potential integration later in the year is Splash by Dexy. And Cameron, did you want to take on, like, what does the bridge mean? It is a community built and community managed project. And then, of course, what does Splash mean for us in the future?
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah, as you mentioned, Warp Green is the bridge, and what it does is it bridges both from Ethereum and from Base into Chia. It allows you to take Ethereum or an ERC20 token from either of those chains and bring it over to Chia as a wrapped asset. Conversely, it also lets you take XCH or a CAT token and bridge it over to the other side as a wrapped token on either Base or Ethereum. That's what it does. And the way that it does is it has a validator network of hand-selected validators that are participating in that bridge. It is built and run entirely outside of Chia Network, which is fantastic. The team there have done an excellent job building it, and we're really excited about it. I think that this is going to be a real turning point for us. One of the things that we wanted to see coming through was wrapped USDC coming over, and we're already seeing that. And so I think that, that'll be really exciting to see that moving around on the Chia side. But then also this bridge, I think, will be able to be used for other applications as well. I think that at its core, it's a messaging layer that can be used for lots of different things. Right now, it's being used to pass messages between bridge contacts, but there are other things that can be done as well. So looking forward to seeing what else is done there. On the other project, let's say you mentioned
Splash, the creation
Splash,
by
yes,
Dexy.
exactly.
Yep.
So Splash is built by Dexy. It's a peer-to-peer network for distributing offer files. They were, I think, initially using it internally themselves just to keep their own systems in sync, but eventually open sourced it. And what that means is now anybody can tap into this kind of shared network of offer distribution. So anybody who wants can connect to it and receive offer files, or they can publish their own. So what we'll end up doing is integrating that into our own wallets. And so you'll be able to publish your offers directly into the Splash network, and anybody that's consuming that, whether that's end users that may want to take your offer, or it could be an indexing service or something like Dexy. It'll show up in all the places. But it also may be used by like a automated trading system. So I think really excited to see all the ways that it can be used. And so, yeah, we're definitely aiming to support that and help the development any way we can.
And I want to add, there's a little feature hiding on the roadmap that really makes this interesting, which is basically paid for placement. So there's kind of two modes of this. One is, you could imagine a future auto trader saying, hey, if you're trying to sell your car and you give this auto trader address a $15 spiff in that offer file, then we'll highlight you. And of course, what's interesting about this is it's truly pay to play. In other words, that doesn't get paid unless somebody takes that offer. The other version of this is just a generic buying order flow. So you basically say, hey, whoever can help me get this offer file closed, I will take 1%, $20, whatever. I think it's going to be an interesting new way to think about how trade order flows run, and it's going to really change what people can do with kind of this one market concept.
Thank you. And that's exactly where I wanted to go with that, was tie it right back into that one market concept, and a great segue there for sure. Thank you, Gene. Now, somewhat tied to that one market concept, we have a question in Zoom here as to, can developers use an API and let end users pay for their wallet by entering an API key for a DApp? So obviously not directly to the cloud wallet, but potentially a tie-in to the rest of the one market system there.
Yeah, so I can answer that, which is yes, ultimately our cloud wallet is built on top of an API that we're building and exposing. We're building our own wallet front end on top of that, but we expect other applications to be able to and want to do that as well. So yes, there will be an API that we publish and expose that other wallets can build on top of. And I think that's great.
Perfect. Thank you. And Gene, I know you wanted to answer this question, and it ties back into one market and how it affects potential competition. Does the cloud wallet replace other wallets like Gobi?
We don't think so at all. We're focused on very much the very high end. It's, do you have millions of billions of dollars at stake of other people's money? That's going to be the types of wallet services and infrastructure we're building. And we're going to be making sure that the reference wallets and the open source gets everybody all the tools that they can go implement pieces of that make sense in the middle and small end of the market. So, from our perspective, we do not want to. And, Cameron said one thing, which is it's unclear whether we'll actually have a mobile wallet. We're going to certainly have an iOS signer. And, it may be that like it looks like a mobile wallet, but it's really web delivered. There's kind of different things there. But the customer is somebody at a top 5 U.S. commercial bank or a financial institution, not really, even NFT artists, though we expect to support them with some of our tiers of our cloud wallet offering. So from that perspective, I think there's going to be a healthy competition in various wallets, plugins, you name it. It's not meant to stop that. And ultimately, we've had some hiccups in doing it, but we'd actually like to make it so that iOS signer is something that other tools can use as well, so that you have one signer, if you will, and multiple wallets.
Thank you very much, and definitely really exciting to see all of this coming together. One clarification from Rue regarding the Watchtower service, and I'm going to turn this back to you, Cameron, because it's regarding those pricing tiers that you identified. Will the Watchtower service be priced such that non-enterprise customers can afford it?
Great question. Yes. So I think the genesis of it was we were building enterprise use cases into the Watchtower, but there are certainly a number of use cases for the Watchtower that we think they're going to want all the way across all of the tiers. And so while we don't have a list that we can share that says, here's what'll be in the free tier, there will be some Watchtower features. For example, if a recovery has been initiated on a wallet or a vault, you should know about it. That's a Watchtower feature that will be in the free tier.
Thank you. And Semaphore would like us to go to a little bit later down the timeline here and go into some of the Q4 stuff with the RBF note. And for those who are not aware, RBF stands for replace by fee. In Chia, the concept to increase your fee on a transaction is you actually end up having to replace the spend bundle with a like spend bundle that has a higher fee. And that's what we're talking about with the RBF feature here. Will the included enhanced fee estimation capabilities for your transactions be for both the original transactions and the RBF transaction?
Is this a question?
Yeah, so by that it is essentially asking the estimated fee process. Are we just looking at that for that initial transaction you're sending out? Or when you're also looking to say, okay, I want to increase my fee on this transaction, will that enhanced estimator of fees also be available there?
Sure. Yeah. So we'll have a single fee estimator, and you can use it when you're creating the transaction, but when you're updating the transaction, you can also tap in, or if you want to upgrade your fee, you can also tap into the fee estimator to get a real-time update. So if the mempool conditions are changing rapidly, and what was good when you submitted your transaction is now different, you'll get a new calculation on what your fee maybe should be.
Thank you. And I know a lot of this context for replace by fee arose once we started to see some of the XCH inscriptions hit the chain, and we saw a lot of real use on the blockchain, which required a lot of that fee pressure. Do you mind just doing a quick overview, Cameron, as to what it takes to have a fee and what it means to have a fee on Chia? Because it's not really the same as other chains.
Yeah, fee calculation, and this is why I think setting a fee has been a little bit tricky on Chia. Fee calculation has a number of components to it. There's the size of your spend, how many bytes you're using. There are the operations that you're executing. There are the conditions and the coins that you're creating. All of those things add up into your what your cost of the transaction is. Now, the cost is more from a resource consumption perspective, not the amount that you have to pay. That's what we call the fee. And so when your transaction is submitted to the mempool, the farmer that is trying to put it into a block is going to take a look at the cost of all of these transactions and order them and say, what is the fee that's associated with this spend? And then what is the cost of that spend? It'll kind of come up with a fee per cost. And then it'll say, what are the most profitable transactions to put in this block? That's essentially what a farmer is going to do. And so when you submit your transaction initially, the mempool may be made of other transactions such that you actually have a pretty good fee per cost and you're standing in a good position. But after you've submitted, before you get included into a block, more transactions could come in with a higher fee per cost, making you less competitive, which is why you would want to be able to upgrade it with this RBF function. I know there's a little bit of conflicts there, but hopefully I gave you the info you were looking for.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate the deep dive into that, and I know it'll help clear up a lot of confusion regarding why and how fees operate on Chia as well. And for those just joining us, we are about halfway through the 2024 Roadmap Q&A with Cameron and Gene. If you do have questions, feel free to jump into the Zoom Q&A or ask inside of the Discord community feedback channel. During these times when we don't have community questions, I do go through the roadmap myself and I'm pulling out additional questions for us. And I still have a few. So hold on to your seatbelts because I might pull a few more out of left field on you guys. The next one I'm hoping we can touch on is data layer. We have a number of items on the roadmap for data layer, such as pagination and also batch updates. What is the purpose of having those on there and kind of what's the state of data layer in general?
Yeah, so the real purpose behind these is to sort of enhance the usability for some of our initial data layer use cases. And in particular cases where they're adding a bunch of records, we want to be able to do batch updates because you want to be able to get more into a single block update. So that was really the point there. And the same with pagination. Once you've got a bunch of records, it doesn't make sense to pull them all down at once. You want to be able to kind of step through them. And so we're just adding some basic usability features there. This isn't an overhaul into how data layer works. This is just more about how you kind of access it on chain.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that's really powerful, especially now that we have so many other governments around the world taking advantage of CAD-T and really needs to do those large updates to ensure carbon is being properly tracked across the whole system here. Now, something we've been alluding to throughout the call today and also throughout other updates is that the DID standard might be seeing an update soon, and VCs might also be revamped from the current chip that's in place. We now see those on the roadmap. And do you mind diving into why we wanted to do an update on DID VC and what it means for the future?
Yeah. So a lot of things that are getting changed, especially around these types of on-chain primitives, sometimes it has to do with our move towards Vault. And there's some things that we want to do with those primitives to make them more compatible with Vault. So for example, with verifiable credentials, we want to make them more compatible with vaults. And then if you have a VC, one of the issues that we often get asked about with VCs is how can you make them non-transferable? And which makes a lot of sense for an issuer to ask that. But one problem that we have is that people want to be able to change their keys. They need to be able to rekey their verifiable credential. And so this is something that we think Vault will be an answer to. If you attach a VC to a vault, you can rekey the vault and manage your keys independently there without transferring the VC. So that's kind of what our goal there. With DID, there's a number of updates that we want to make, but it's really interesting to think about the interplay between DIDs and vaults. Your vault is actually essentially a DID, and you would be able to use it that way. That's not going to be at the initial release of Vault, but that is sort of, I think, what we're seeing a trend towards. And so we want to make some updates there to make VCs work better, or sorry, DIDs work better with Vault.
Thank you.
I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to that, Gene, but yeah, that's the gist of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the big thing is making sure that you can easily do offline nonces and those kinds of things where you're not actually using the chain to authenticate per se. You're using the chain to be the base authentication layer that you're then comparing both the login and the person trying to log in to do together. That's ultimately what we want to see here, and that's where we start getting into IAM as well.
Thank you very much. And yeah, appreciate the additional clarification on that and very excited. I know I'm going to be taking advantage of Vault and helping to switch part of my family over to them as well to make sure that those assets are properly maintained. Now, another thing that has been a really hot topic this year, and we see it on the roadmap, is the plot format. And of course, we don't have too much information as to what it's going to look like, but are you able to share a little bit on loose timelines for when we might have more info?
Well, so the first thing I'll say is I think the timeline is longer than probably what people expect. I think that what we do know is that there's going to be a pretty long transition period. So roughly what's happening is we're developing the new plot format. And right now, this is figuring out the details of the new plot format. And then it goes into development of writing the code for it. At some point, there will be a release of software. Let's say it's in 6 months. There will be a release of software that contains the new plot format. Then there will be a period of time after that release where it kicks in on chain. Maybe it's another 6 months after that. We usually try to have at least like 90 days before a soft fork, but this will be actually a hard fork. And so we'll want to have plenty of time after the code release to make sure that everybody has upgraded. Then at that point in time, there will be a transition period where old and new formats are valid, which means that if you've got OG plots right now, they're going to continue to be valid for certainly a year, probably even encroaching on 2 years from now, which I think is an important consideration, especially when people are asking themselves, should I replot right now and go to Dr. Plotter, or should I wait for the new plot format? I think the answer is pretty clear. You shouldn't be waiting for the new plot format. If there's gains to be had right now by switching to Dr. Plotter, like you should just use that now, because those plots will be good for 1 to 2 years, like probably much more than a year, but I don't know how much more than a year, but I think it's definitely worth it. That's the rough structure of how to think about this. Sorry, we don't have the details on the plot format to give you yet. I think we're actually really close on it. It's right now just kind of fine tuning it. But then after that, we'll be able to share more. But hopefully the rough timeline that I gave you actually will hold. I don't know if Gene, you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the shorter term impacts and what's going on. Right now, I would say that we're writing code about writing code, in the sense that we've got a good sense of what we think that first proposal should be. And we've got the team implementing both kind of a model so that you can actually like twiddle the various bits and figure out, what the trade-offs look like. We want to make that publicly available so that people can see, how and why we kind of came to this is what we think is the best, set of variables for that new plot format. But, to echo Bram, we're really excited that the core math all held. Obviously none of us thought we'd get 50% compression on GPUs, but, by bringing in GPU experts, we've now got that other piece of the model very well handled. And never forget that a blockchain is a walking bug bounty program. And so, it had the effect we wanted it to have. And I think we're going to be pretty happy, I think, ultimately with this changeover, because it's going to be very hard to get much compression. You'll always be able to get some. And, we're always going to talk about there are going to be attacks and other things. But again, it's the economic security of the attacks that matter. If it's going to be too, not very cost effective, it becomes its own defense to not do that. So anyway, I think you're going to be able to see, our proposal soon. I don't think we're going to see, final written plots anytime too soon, to echo what Cameron was saying. But I do think the community should expect that we'll be able to get, that first kind of, here's what we're looking at, here are what those models look like, here's where you can yourself, inspect and see what you agree, and really get the chip process going. So that's the next step.
Yeah, thank you both very much. I know that's going to clear up a lot of uncertainty and a lot of hesitation to go out and replot in the short term here. I think a lot of people will take advantage of that now, knowing they have that timeline, which is still really much along the lines of what Bram was saying. Now, Bram obviously identified this is the quickest possible timeline that we can have happen, and we might have shifted a little bit off that, but it seems like we're still within those bounds. Now, in Q4 of 2024, one of the notes on here, and I think it's one of the things that a lot of people involved in the ecosystem don't pay attention to, and that's block utilization to 100%. And this kind of has one reason as to why we didn't do that yet, and another reason as to why it's going to be so effective once we do make that push. Would one of you want to take on, say, why have we not been at 100% utilization yet?
I'll take that one since it's my tech debt beast. When we were launching, we knew that Python wasn't really ready to be able to keep up with the blockchain at the Raspberry Pi 4 level. And so we also knew that 40 TPS was a tremendous amount and wasn't going to be necessary anytime soon. So that's where the 50% number came from. Now, we've slowly but surely been, if you will, harvesting all the low-hanging fruit of those optimizations. And the next big optimization is already underway, which is the most expensive pieces are slowly but surely moving from Python to Rust. So, ultimately the downloadable node is going to be a Python wrapper around Rust doing the hard work. Obviously, that started with CLVM, and it's now moving into block validation and all the other pieces. So, with Rust, we can't really say we're always going to be RPi 4, but we still use it as a good yardstick because it talks about what a VPS size should be and what the kind of overall cost of running a node is. So that's really where that comes from and where we're going, where we feel pretty confident that all the Rustification, if you will, is going to considerably increase performance on a kind of price performance basis, making it so we can give people the full 40 TPS.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's going to be excellent. We'll see that increase in volume here by the end of the year, it looks like. And of course, for those paying attention, you would have seen that we've been slowly bumping this up on mainnet, but also on testnet to make sure that everything's going to work properly and those lower end devices can still manage a good workflow with real use case, like the simulated use on testnet 11 there. Now we're wrapping up all of our community questions. We did have one last one, which is definitely more on the fun side here, and it's from Andrew Davidson. I'm going to put it out there for each of you individually. If a roadmap genie gave you 3 wishes, which 3 items on the roadmap would you ask to be immediately delivered? Do you want to take that one first, Cameron?
Sure. Enterprise Cloud Wallet, would love to have that done today. There's so many use cases for it. So many things we're excited about being able to do. Love to have that done. Love to have the new plot format done. That would be amazing to just have that behind us. Not just like developed, but through the fork, if that's what you're asking. I'd love to have the new plot format done. And then to me, it's pretty much a lot of it's wrapped up in Enterprise Wallet. I'd say, multi-sig vault and iOS signer, but all of that is a component of it. So I think I cheated maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to uncheat. I'm going to say multi-sig vaults and iOS signer plus what I consider to be a suite of features that are multiple offer files per offer. It's really getting the ecosystem generating an offer for every stable or unstable and being able to, immediately as the seller turn that into whatever stables you care about or not accept a certain stable. Anyway, point being that you really shouldn't be making one offer. You should be making 5 offers these days. And I really want to see that core functionality out there.
Most certainly. And like what we have for 2025, that tie-in of the limit orders is going to be awesome to see as well come into play. Really funnel into that one market solution there. Now, we don't have any additional community questions. If somebody does have a last minute pressing question, feel free to use the Zoom Q&A or the Discord community feedback channel. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it to you guys to last thoughts and wrapping thoughts. Cameron, we'll go ahead and start with you. I know we have shifted some things over to under consideration, things like the gaming and some other like the randomness beacon, which are going to be very exciting things that are still being actively developed. But what else that we've not talked about that's not in the mainstream of the roadmap are you excited for that people might be able to find in that under consideration section?
That's a good question. We are trying to make some progress on Ledger. It became a little bit less important because of the iOS signer, but I still think that more hardware wallets is better. So I think it's at least wanted to call that out to let people know that we haven't forgotten about it. Just because it's there under consideration doesn't mean we're not making progress on it. We just haven't put it on a specific place in the roadmap yet.
Yeah, and I'd add that for also.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's an excellent addition there. I know a lot of people are concerned about the Ledger implementation.
In fact, just to be a little more clear, it's not entirely in our hands. So we are trying to push the ball forward here. But because that's a app ecosystem that we can't just self-publish into, we have less predictability about the timeline. And so that's why it's under consideration instead of a specific quarter.
Yeah, and I was going to add that, for example, peer-to-peer gaming is in the same sort of thing, where we're actually pretty close to bringing it out of, kind of R&D and out of Bram's day-to-day and handing that over to the regular team to go finish productizing. But it's just too soon to be able to get a good date against it. So, still, I think Bram has said, we might have something by the end of the year. Still sounds about right. Might slip into Q1, point being that we really do see a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a working implementation of peer-to-peer gaming.
I know I'm excited for that as well, and especially the implementation of state channels and that ability to seamlessly interact with a peer is going to be really, really cool. Cameron, I see you are answering that question regarding the
Yep.
ability to plot with GPU and CPU. Feel free to share that here as well.
Oh, I was just answering that yes, you will continue to be able to plot with GPU. We also want CPU plotting to be a thing, but I don't know what the performance and constraints and requirements are going to be on that yet. GPU plotting, I think, will still continue to be the preferred way to do it. But yes, GPU plotting.
I can add a little color. So GPU is certainly going to be faster, and we expect GPU to be quite fast, even with the new plot format for plotting. But CPU is something we want to keep. We want to make sure that people can absolutely, slowly but surely use their CPU to replot over the replot window. It's going to be a lot slower. Now, a lot slower means, we're talking about 2-minute plots on GPUs. 2 hours might be the number. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. It's never going to go back to the way it was at mainnet launch, so people don't need to worry about it getting that bad. But that is very much one of the things that really kind of is the output of the model that we want to make available, is for folks to be able to see, hey, if you crank this number up, then all of a sudden CPU plotting balloons, for example. So, you want to make sure that we're making that trade-off so that people really can still use the CPU as long as they're not in a rush.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and answer one of the questions in Discord right here as well by Rue, and it's about whether or not there would be matchmaking built by CNI for the peer-to-peer gaming. And I know the last note on that is that it's a great opportunity for the community to build a matchmaking platform, and CNI will build a lot of the framework to help in that regard, such as, here's how the state channel operates, here's how you can integrate with it, here's an example of it operating. And that is definitely going to be a great opportunity for the community to build out a nice platform, which is a great segue into Steve Stepp's question here. And that is, what are a couple of projects CNI would like to see built by the community members, similar to Warp Green or Dexy Splash?
I think you just answered it, which is once the Bram's gaming primitives come out, we're going to want somebody to build out an ecosystem and product around that. That's not going to be Chia Network's gaming platform. Somebody else should do that. So I'd love to see somebody do that in the community.
Also, you should think about the peer-to-peer gaming protocol as being a baseline to build new games atop. So very much being implemented so that you can take, your gaming idea from a peer-to-peer game perspective and add it to the stack of the kind of initial 1 to 5 games that we're going to be making available.
Thank you. Thank you. And the last question that we have in the Zoom Q&A here is regarding the buy XCH button on chia.net. And I think a lot of this is coming from the integration with the bridge, the one market concept, and are there any plans to optimize or adapt the buy XCH button on Chia to integrate with?
I think, oh, go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
I was going to say, there's a lot of possibilities now that have opened up with the bridge. I think we don't have a specific update that we can announce around the buy XCH button, but I think that with what the bridge offers, and there's actually some additional enhancements that we can make that'll make it really easy to be able to onboard through the bridge. I think there's a lot of potential there that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I mean, we think the number one way for an American to onboard to Chia is to buy some USDC at base. And there are a couple features, some of which have been released very recently, some of which are any minute now from Coinbase, that will make it so it's almost a one-click experience. And especially with the free tier of the web wallet, we really want that to be a, open your web wallet with a passkey and then immediately basically cross-log into your Coinbase account, fund it or not fund it, press a button, and 15 minutes later, you've got USDC from Base in your Chia wallet.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, excellent for sure there. And yeah, Cameron, I'll let you answer that question in Zoom there. And then, of course, we always have the wonderful when merch and when IPO. So we'll go ahead and throw all 3 of those at you at once here. So plans for Bridge BTC onto Chia, when merch, and Gene, maybe you can touch on the when IPO.
I don't know if I can say anything specific about Bridge BTC, other than it is something we are actively looking at and working on. but it basically is not something we're going to do single-handedly. And so I can't say we have a plan and here it is, but I can say that we're working on it.
And we do actually have some interesting leads there that are kind of pre-announced. Let's say it that way. On Win IPO, you know, my comments in the most recent Bloomberg article are probably not as much as I can say. You know, our goal is to be ready on our side, and that is progressing well. And you know, I can tell you that other people are saying that this looks like to be a market that's going to open. But if you've looked at the last couple of days, Bitcoin has been unhappy on all of us, and the alt season seems to be paused. So, you know, macro market conditions ultimately drive that timing. But we've got the things that we can control very much in our control, and are about to be able to, you know, articulate even more use cases and other things that are going to be key to really getting all the pieces in line for us. You know, I say this often. There are kind of four big goals this year. Number one is one non-carbon major use case, and we've made some good progress on that. You know, nothing announced today, but stay tuned. Getting carbon on chain all the time, and you know, we're excited about that. The major blocker has been having a good stable coin, because obviously the carbon projects do and don't want to deal necessarily with, you know, pricing an XCH. That's actually one of the things we want to do in the cloud wallet, is make that easy for them. But that's not the first place they go. They just want to say, hey, how do I get my USDC on and off? And then the third one is better on ramps and off ramps. And obviously, you saw that additional exchanges picked us up the last couple of weeks. We've actually got, you know, I think one of the best on ramps and off ramps ever, with USDC both off Base and off Tether, or off Ethereum, pardon me. And also Tether, for those of you who are kind of not in the, you know, Europe or US regions. You know, lots of folks have that as a preference, and it's right there off of Ethereum as well. So the final one was being IPO ready. And, you know, we are in that process. You know, we had filed at the end of March. That process is going very well, surprisingly well, in fact. And so we expect to get our side of that all handled. And then it's a macro market question about, you know, how are the IPO and coin markets out there?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that wrap up, and we are getting near the top of the hour here. So thank you all for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking with Eugene and you, Cameron, about the 2024 roadmap. I appreciate you guys letting me pull a few out of left field and surprise you with some of those questions. And to the community members, thank you all for your in-depth questions as well. And we always appreciate the rapid fire at the end, so we can knock out a whole bunch of stuff within just a few minutes there. And thank you for your time. Stay tuned for a couple of fun events here in the future. We are going to have an announcement by the end of this week about an event to overview the bridge, the Warp Green Bridge, and also potentially do a demo on that. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up within the next few weeks. Stay tuned on Discord, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and all of our other social channels. But thank you, gents, for your time today, and to everybody out there,